Hello again. Welcome to another session of the 18th Annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment Virtual Conference. I'm Bob Hales. I'm your moderator. Um, don't forget, we have a sponsor this year, which is the Journal of Educators Online. They have some great refereed articles going back to, I think I saw 2004. So they got a zillion articles. There's bound to be some interest to you. You can get to it by going to thejeo.com. Simple as that. We have with us for this session Amy Z. Waters. She's been in this instructional design since 2000 in both K-12 and higher ed, and is currently the lead instructional designer with Augusta University Online. Amy is really passionate about designing successful online learning experiences for both the teaching faculty and the future students. And Amy's going to talk about the power of 3Ds: design, develop, deliver. So, Amy, take it away, if you will.
Thank you for that introduction, Bob. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you all this afternoon. And like I said, my name is Amy Waters from Augusta University. I work in the online unit for Augusta University. That's in East Georgia. And I want to talk to you today about the process we use in course development. So I am an instructional designer and co-produced our process of using Microsoft Loop and Microsoft Teams primarily to as the two main tools for us to design, develop, and deliver new online courses as we work with online with our faculty course developers. That's what we call the SMEs at Augusta, is faculty course developers. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump in and state something very obvious to get us started. The first thing that I want to just throw out there to get us all in the mindset of where we're going over the next little while is what all is included in course design and course design projects when we may be working with a faculty member who might not have ever developed an online course, taught an online course. And it might just be something that, every faculty is going to be a little bit different. But here are the obvious things the obvious elements that we know we're going to need to do as instructional designers to develop that course, to develop that faculty member's vision for the course, to capture their subject matter expertise. So we, of course, we want to establish, one thing I'm really big on with course design projects is developing a relationship with that faculty course developer. And so we want it to be a good experience for them. We, again, want to build and produce something that's going to serve them well as the future instructor, something that's going to serve their students, their future online students well also. And so the elements, introductions and kickoff, what are the outcomes that need to be addressed as part of this course experience? Obviously, the materials, the syllabus, the resources. How are the students going to be engaged in their learning? What grades will they be given as part of this? How will they be assessed? And one thing that we are really passionate about is consistent organization of content. So we want to reduce that cognitive load. We want our students to be able to know when they get into a course, it's not going to be the same look and feel, but it's going to be consistent. A very similar look and feel, but not the same necessarily. But we want them to be able to spend that time on the course experience, not how do I navigate this course. So that's really important. We want to develop a source of truth for that course. So where is like the many universities call it the master course shell. We call it the primary course shell. How will we stay organized? How will we communicate? How will we create an instructor guide for any other faculty that might teach that course? How do we ensure outcomes alignment? And then extending that into after it's taught for the first time, How do we reconvene with a faculty course developer and learn how that test drive went? And how can we ensure that continuous improvement? That's a lot in a course design project, but the system that we've come up with actually works really well and walks us through that. So if you don't mind, in the chat, or if you want to hop on the microphone, either way is absolutely fine with me. What do you currently use to document your course design? Whether you're an instructional designer, work with instructional designers, what is your tool or tools that you use to document your course design efforts? Let me pull up the chat here. If you guys could enter that in the chat. I'm curious, kind of as a starting point, of what currently is part of or all of your process. It doesn't have to be anything, real comprehensive, but curious what your current method is. Okay, I'm not seeing any messages yet. Totally fine. You might be typing. But let's go ahead and just think about it. What you currently use, what works well with your current process, what might not work as well as you'd like, what are some areas for improvement? And so as we think about this, think about could any of what I'm going to share today potentially be implemented at your university? Okay. And so what I want to just show you is kind of where we went. Okay. When I started at Augusta University Online, there was a process in place. And I'm all about continuous improvement, all about continuous improvement. And so, I adopted that existing process, but as we worked in it, I thought, man, there could be some things that could be improved with what I kind of inherited when I first started at AU Online. I inherited it because it was, I started shortly after, again, Augusta University started their online unit. And so that first iteration of improvements, I went with a Microsoft Word document, and we used Microsoft Teams as kind of our file cabinet and communication infrastructure. And so between the Word document, between Microsoft Teams, and that those were like the two things we used to document everything, and then some more things. And so you can imagine that Microsoft Word document was huge by the time we finished developing a course. So we used Teams to to organize the files, the resources, and then the Word document to kind of capture the scope and sequence of the course. Well, you can imagine how passionate I am about where we got to in the green location icon there. And that was then kind of our third iteration of continuous improvement with how we document our course design process. And so we moved from that gargantuan Microsoft Word file, still kept the Microsoft Team component for file organization and communication, but rather than the Word file, we shifted to the use of Microsoft Loop. You may have heard of Microsoft Loop. Many people, based on my experience, have not, but I think that you're going to be excited about what Loop can potentially offer for organization, communication, and so forth here, and glad to answer any questions about our use of it. And so going back to really the focus of this presentation, really how are we using Loop and Teams, both Microsoft products. Our university is a Microsoft university, and so there was no added expenses to be able to use those two tools. And so how do we use those for designing a course, developing it in the LMS, delivering it, and then, what steps were taken to be able to let that be done? And so really that's what I want to share with you all over the next little bit. So here we're going to focus just on the design part first, okay? And so as we were going through and developing this process and the use of these two tools, the goals of design are one. And like I said, I think this is probably just as important, if not more important, than the actual course content, but really facilitating collaboration and building a relationship with your faculty course developer, which again is what we call our subject matter experts. And so, really facilitating that, but also at the same time modeling effective instructional design principles. That's huge for us. Okay. And so, how can we, if we're working with a faculty course developer who might not be very familiar with instructional design, might not even really know what is an instructional designer, what do they do? And I'm working with them now and I'm meeting with them once a week. What's going on? What can I expect? And so we want to try to from the beginning model effective IED principles and then really offer cohesive, progressive, scaffolded guide to our faculty course developers so that we can really not only develop the course but develop an engaging course that is has all the elements that they want, that we would like to see, all encapsulated in that high quality online course offering. So that's where, kind of our goals for facilitating the design with Teams and Loop begins. Okay, so how do we do that? One is that, of course, we have that collaborative partnership. And so we guide them through the process, and we start off real slow. And I'm going to show you kind of a Loop template here momentarily. But we take about 1 month when we first start, and we're meeting weekly with our faculty course developers, and we take a month to blueprint the course, kind of map it out, and do the first module. At AU Online, we have 8-week courses primarily, and so we take a month really to roadmap, blueprint that course, and develop that first module, and then we speed things up a little bit, modules 2 through 7. But we want to make sure, what learning outcomes do we need to make sure we're addressing, assessing, and meeting. And so that could be at the programmatic level, that could be, of course, at the course level. And then are there any additional accreditation standards that we need to address as part of this? Okay, so that kind of drives a lot of decision making. What is that course developer's vision for the course? I love to ask the question, what do you want this course to look like when we're finished? And that is something that we can, we ask very early on. And then I'm a huge proponent of backward design. How can I make that happen? How can I bring this vision to life? And so really then I am, taking notes in Loop, and the faculty course developers right there in Loop with us so they can see, what I'm writing down. And that's visited often to make sure that that vision is being constructed over our development project time together. And so the elements then that we try to address are consistency. Again, we want those students to be able to get into that online course and not learn how to navigate and find where do I find things. Okay. Of course, we want it to be an accessible course experience. And then we want it to be an engaging course experience. So we've got that trifold of engaging with content, with the instructor, and with their peers as part of that course experience. So we're going to shift a little bit now to development. And again, you're going to see all of this kind of encapsulated in a Loop template that I'll share momentarily with you all. So during the development part, we have additional goals. Okay, how can we keep this project organized? Okay, how can we can show our faculty course developers the best way to present the content, the best way to transfer their vision and their content into the LMS, and how can we let them know what their options are? We have certain tools at AU Online, and they may never have even heard of some of these. We ask them to go through kind of an orientation of sorts so they get experience with that prior to developing with us. And it may be some that they've never heard of, never used before. And so they take that experience as a student learning that, but also then, kind of shifting gears a little bit. How can I take what I just learned as a student in the orientation for faculty? And now I want to apply to my own course for my own students to use it. And so we do have a menu of options that lets them see what all the possibilities are for presenting and engaging with their content. In addition to Loop, again, the other half of the equation, maybe a third of the equation, because I don't want to neglect mentioning the LMS, but the Teams. Teams is used, and most of us probably have used Microsoft Teams for communication purposes, that instant messaging. But we also use Teams as the file cabinet. And so we offer in that team, we'll have one team for an entire program. And in that one team, that one Microsoft team, we have a channel that's private for every course that we're going to develop in that program. And in those private channels, you'll have the instructional designer and the faculty course developer. And in those channels, that's where that communication occurs. Because I don't know about y'all, but inboxes become the wild, wild west very quick. So all of it's captured within that private channel. And then in the folder of that private channel, again, just for that one course, we as my team will go in and we will make folders, project documentation, and then a folder for each of the 8 modules. So in conjunction with what's happening in Loop, they may say, hey, I've got a journal article that that I know is okay for me to use. It's accessible. And I have it on PDF. So they put that PDF in whatever module folder in Teams, and they tell me in Loop, hey, look in the Teams folder. And that's all I need. I know where to get it now. And all of that is recorded in Loop. You'll have a better idea of what I mean here in just a moment. But as we develop, again, hopefully there's a theme, a repetitive pattern here that you're seeing. Collaborative partnership. This is something that is so important to us in building that relationship. Organization. To develop a course takes a high level of organization. And to be able to break up what that faculty course developer wants in each of the 8 modules, we've got 8 folders in the team to be able to help keep that organized, keep record, and to make sure we have that source of truth. In addition, the learning experiences, how it can be transferred to the LMS. And then we also use the Loop to document from the very beginning, from the very first meeting with them. Here is our progression. We're going to take 2 weeks for this part, 2 weeks for this part, 1 week for this part. So they know before we even get going, what's our start date and what is our hopeful end date. I say hopeful because life happens. But really, trying to document that 14 to 16 week process that we have to be able to develop and complete that course development so that we have time, my team has time to do quality assurance on it. And it has 3 cycles of quality assurance. And all of that is built into the Loop. Okay, so this is big picture, everything that I've just said. So we got 3 components in our course development process. Of course, we have the LMS. Okay, and so in the LMS, we have their course that we're building, their shell. And then we have 2 resources that we make available to our faculty course developers to orient them, but also to provide via the ODC, the online development course, just-in-time information. Okay, hey, we're about to get into the first module. And so in our online course, online development course, we'll have information and resources that is applicable to that specific timeline of the development project. In Loop, we have a blueprint for the modules. We have a menu of options. And again, that facilitates taking those resources, that information, the smaller parts of the faculty course developer's vision, and transferring it and building out that vision in the LMS. And then finally with Teams, again, that's that ongoing communication, sharing, and organization of course assets. And there is, and this is one thing that I haven't mentioned specifically yet, a great integration of Loop with Teams. There's a great integration of Loop with Outlook email. And so I can, if I'm in Loop and I have a question from my faculty course developer, I can ask the question in Loop and tag them, just like, at Amy Waters. Can you tell me more about what you mean here? There, as soon as I tag them, I'm going to get an email in Outlook. They can answer in the email, and it's going to record back in the Loop automatically. They don't have to go to Loop. They can open that email up, right, where I tagged them in Loop. It's going to show up in the email, and it's automatically going to get recorded right back in Loop. Now, I want to mention something because you'll see that I'm mentioning D2L here. That is our LMS at Augusta University. All of the University System of Georgia schools use D2L Brightspace. But again, this is applicable to any LMS. And then some of you might think, well, we're a Google school. We don't have Microsoft. How could I transfer what you're saying and use the Google productivity suite? And so it won't be the exact same, but I have worked with a different university just in sharing and brainstorming. And I think they were building out a similar structure through the use of Google Docs and the tabs, relatively new feature in Google Docs, where tabs could be somewhat equivalent to what I'm going to show you in Microsoft Loop. So I don't want to neglect, I'm a Googler as well, so I didn't want to neglect mentioning Google. But again, we are a Microsoft environment at my university, but you can use Google Drive instead of that file cabinet in Microsoft Teams. You can use Google Docs and tabs instead of Loop in the Microsoft environment. Okay, so I didn't want to not mention Google, but we'll keep going on with specific information related to this in Microsoft. But again, I think it's definitely doable and practical in the Google environment as well. Okay, so how do we use this for delivery? So our end goals, we want a primary shell. Again, some universities call that the master course shell. At AU Online, we call it the primary shell. So we're going to have that primary shell built out. We're going to have the loop that has documented everything that has been transferred into the LMS. We're going to have the Microsoft Teams, so we have all the files. All right, and then the end goal is quality assurance. So again, we have 3 iterations of quality assurance. We ask the faculty course developer, hey, click through this course. Now that we built it out, click through this course. And they've been, of course, clicking through it as we build those modules, because we build the modules, especially that first module, early on in the course development process, because we have found there's a huge light bulb moment when they see, okay, this whole loop thing, I'm doing what you're asking me to do, and I'm putting my files in Teams, and I'm recording things in Loop. But when they see their efforts transferred into the LMS as module 1, it is a huge light bulb moment of, okay, now I understand how what I'm doing here and here is translating into that first module in the LMS. Okay. And so we asked them, hey, from your perspective as the instructor, please click through the course, try out everything. Is there anything that you would like modified? Are there any questions that you have? And then I, as the instructional designer, will do the same thing. With a really fine-tooth comb, I go through that course to make sure that it is all set and ready to go. And then another member of my team will also use a scorecard that we've created at AU Online, and they will actually use that scorecard, it's a rubric, and go through that course and do a QA on it using that scorecard, send that to me if I was an ID, and then I go and make any modifications based on what the faculty course developer told me, what I found in my QA, and also what may have been discovered. Maybe a link opened up in the same tab and not in a new tab. It could be something as minute as that, but we go through it with a very fine-tooth comb and make sure that we correct and then make any necessary adjustments based on those 3 QAs, okay? We do use simple syllabus, and so the end goal for that is to be able to help the faculty course developer create their syllabus for the online delivery of this course. And then we do create a course instructor guide, and that is something that we provide a template for, and we will work with a faculty course developer to create that course instructor guide as well. We're hopeful that they will be the first instructor of the course, but if there are multiple sections, or if some for whatever reason it's decided by their department that they're actually not going to be the first teacher, that course instructor guide is super critical. Okay, so we've talked about design, develop, and deliver. So now let's talk about how we do this. Okay, and so what I would like to do is walk through the course build template and kind of give you a tour of sorts of what Loop looks like and how we have it organized. Okay, so in Loop, these are all, I've got a lot of workspaces. We use this extensively. Bob, can you just confirm that you can see everything okay on my end? Or if someone could just give me a thumbs up
Yeah.
if you can. Okay, okay. I just want to make sure since I had switched tabs. Thank you so much. So this, in a nutshell, folks, is what we use for our. This is a template, and so we make copies of this loop for every course that will be developed. And so you'll notice a couple of things here. Let me just close that out. One, we have some links. And so I do have, some information that I want to provide to the faculty course developers. And so I do a quick link to different resources, one of which is the guiding principles that we use at AU Online. The second thing we have is faculty journey. So this gives them an idea of what they can expect. We have a list of engagement activities. We have a link to our university's AI policy. And so I'm not meaning to glance over those, but really where the course development happens is this part right here. And so I'm going to expand these one at a time so that I can walk you through and show you how it is an intentionally built progressive system that starts with the very beginning all the way until after it's taught the first time. And so this walks our faculty through that process. And again, we're documenting all of this here and in the Microsoft team and ultimately in our LMS. So the very first thing is that we have course development information. This is where we ask the faculty course developers, and we will fill, we meaning the ID team, will fill in some of the information that we can for the faculty course developer. But this is where it's a great introduction of gathering those details for the scope and sequence of the course development project. And so we provide some links to them. We will actually link to the teams here. We will link to their primary course shell here. We have a librarian, and so we provide her information. And then this is really where we say, and this is where I would fill in some of this information, but what is the course title and number? All right, who is the course developer, the faculty course developer? Who is their lead, their program lead? That should we, need to reach out to them, maybe confirm a textbook or what have you. What is his or her name? What degree program? All the information that we need in order to get a strong start. This is part of building that blueprint. So I'm certainly not going to read all this information to you, but this is where we say, okay, when is this going to get taught the first time? And then when are we going to get started with this? And when are we hopefully going to finish the course development build out? When weekly are we going to meet over Teams? Could they share a sample syllabus? What's the textbook information? And you'll see I have notes in here for my team. Hey, ask them about OER. Is there a lower cost that we, could consider as different resources for readings instead of a very expensive textbook? We try to interject a little humor in here. So we say, will a brief video course overview be used? Yes, please check this one. Okay, because we really want them to. And and if they say no, we'll talk about the importance of community building and so forth. But ultimately, we really, that's their choice. But we try to make it where they know that what we'd really like to see, ideally, And then we talk about, is there an AI statement that is more specific, not to replace the university's AI policy, but is there anything that extends it per their program or department? And I will just kind of keep going from here and show you kind of the timeline of development. So what's in red will be updated every time this template is copied into a new Loop workspace. But this kind of gives you an idea that this is about 3 months, okay, about 3.5, about 14 to 16 weeks typically is what we find. But this is really what we try to show them when we first start, is that we're going to have our kickoff meeting. We're going to take it real slow at the beginning, 2 weeks to map the course out, build that foundation and that roadmap, build the blueprint for the course. We're going to take another 2 weeks just to do that first module. Again, we want that aha light bulb moment of what they're doing in Loop and Teams and how it's transferring into the LMS. And then we speed up because it does become more iterative. And we take about 1 week per module. And then you'll note in row 11 here that we then go ahead and mention QA. We want them to know that that is an integral part of our process. And then we will have that final course, primary course, and a finalized instructor course guide, and then the developments end. This is where we gather their accreditation requirements, if applicable, their program learning outcomes, their course learning outcomes, and then we save, I don't want to say the best for last, but maybe the best for last. And I'll explain my squirrel super quick. If you've ever seen the movie Up, I'm a huge dog person. If you ever see the movie Up, you've got Doug the dog. And he could be in the middle of a conversation. If he sees a squirrel, that's where his mind's going. And so we build out banners for all of our courses, top course homepage banner, but also a banner for each module. We put this at the end because if this was at the top, we would just look for pictures our entire meeting because we will squirrel. And so we put that at the end, like, hey, what would be maybe some pictures? But this is, again, we're trying to inform them that we can't just take any picture. It's got to be, copyright free. And so we give some resources, or they can just give us some keywords. Hey, I'd really like a picture of a government building, and they'll provide that, and then we will go and look. We'll squirrel on our own time and try to find an image, and we'll build out that banner and see if it addresses what they are wanting it to be. Okay. So there is, then if you'll return to the left side, we give them a copy of our kickoff PowerPoint. And then this is our first meeting, the individual kickoff meeting. This is when we meet with a faculty course developer, not as a group, not as a cohort, but individually. And so I tried to really make sure that my team members, my other IDs, will know what we need to make sure we address, ask, clarify, and so forth as part of this first meeting with the faculty course developers. So these are reminders. Also, this would be where they can make notes. It's only this person and it's only the ID and the faculty course developer in here. Okay, so hey, introduce yourself. Tell me about that course. What is your vision for the course? Are there any special applications or software that I need to know about before we get going, developing, designing, and building this course out? Can they access the Loop? Can they access their course shell? Can they access the online development course? Can they access the team and the channel? All the things we want to make sure in that first meeting they can get. And then we go ahead and start working on introductions of best practices for instructional design, trust but verify, copyright. Accessibility is a responsibility, and sometimes that might not have been on their radar, and they don't know what they don't know related to accessibility. And so we start building that framework of making sure that we look through the copyright lens, we look through the accessibility lens, and all aspects of the course development. Okay. So we provide some resources, and then this is where I would put real-time reminders of, hey, after this kickoff meeting, it would be great if you reviewed this in the ODC, and also begin to gather and determine which resources and assets you're going to use. We have a time point spreadsheet where we keep track of the amount of time, but also the points that will eventually produce the gradebook. We have ongoing meeting notes. Right, and this is the part that I typically use. Some of my IDs say the meeting notes are not really how I work or not really how my faculty course developer works. That's fine. Then maybe they work by using a task list. And so maybe they might completely remove the ongoing meeting notes. They can delete that. And they work on the task list instead. Some IDs say task lists and meeting notes is not really how I work. I work really more like this, and it's a Kanban board. And so I've gone ahead and built out modules 1 through 8, but all of the other things that happen post development. And I worked with one faculty member, and he would say, all right, I'm moving this card to complete because we are done. And he loved moving those cards. And so we use this Kanban board in that particular project. This is how it worked best for him. And so that's something that my IDs have really 3 built-in options to document and to keep track of how the course development is progressing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and expand this second part, and you'll see that there's a module 1, a module number, and a module 8. And so again, this is our template, but really essentially, we'll build this out in, to produce one that has modules 1 through 7 in there, okay? But essentially, this is what we walk through with our faculty course developers. And again, we've taken 2 weeks to roadmap it, 2 weeks to do just this first module. So they go in there, what do they want the module to be titled? Here's some information that may be helpful, quick tips. And then we have a table of contents. And this is where we pump the brakes and spend a little bit of time explaining this. This table of contents could appear overwhelming until we explain it. Every one of our modules is going to have an overview. It's going to list out the objectives or outcomes. In module 1 specifically, we have an introductions activity. And so all of this will not be used. But if you'll recall, I said menu of options earlier. And so, yes, there's going to be readings. There's going to be multimedia. Maybe there's some supplemental. But also then there are going to be some engagement opportunities and activities. There is going to be some assessment. And so we put in here 3 different activities. And then in the 3 activities, we list out, here are some options. And so I might have a faculty member that says, okay, I want a yellow dig and I want a hypothesis, and maybe I want just 2 activities. If so, then my team will go in and remove any unused part of this loop. And then you'll see looking ahead, and all those are hyperlinked from the table of contents, okay? And so we've got looking ahead, we have a module feedback form. So I've already got all the code right there for my IDs to enter in to the LMS should they need it. It should be in there from our template. And then this is where we document that time and the points. And then we have our squirrel, where they give us images or they give us keywords so that we can build out that module 1 banner for the instructor. So I went through that super quick. Again, module 2 through 7 are going to be the same. And the only difference between module 1 and module 2 through 7 is that 2 through 7, actually 2 through 8, do not have that introduction activity, but everything else is the same. But that just kind of helps as we're recreating a workspace for each course development project. Okay, so you'll see it's all very much the same. And in module 8, there are a couple of differences. One of which is now we need to make sure, and so I've got a note from my team, Hey, at instructional designer, please walk through the QA scorecard with your faculty course developer. Give them an idea of all the things that we're going to be looking for in our own QA that's going to be done twice. One other item that is different in Module 8 is that instead of looking ahead at the end of Modules 1 through 7, we're going to look back at the end of Module 8 and summarize and reflect on everything they've learned in those 8 modules. I do have some reminders for my team. One is, hey, we really want to know what their experience was like. So please encourage them to take the feedback survey. And when they do that, they can just check it off and it strikes through. So these are all just different reminders for the ID. Don't forget about the syllabus. Don't forget about alignment map. Don't forget that we need to do these final tasks in the primary course shell. And speaking of final tasks, I'll go ahead and just mention really what is the end. We want to have a link to the syllabus right here. We want to have a link to the course instructor guide right here. We want to make sure that alignment is documented. Here's the survey that we're asking them to complete. Accessibility report. And then after that first test drive, we're going to schedule a debrief meeting. This is where our notes are going to be taken for that debrief meeting. And what is that continuous improvement information? Was it requested by the faculty course developer or a different faculty member? What was the date of the request? Is it high priority? Did it impact the students or the instruction? If so, absolutely it is. And then documenting that it's been completed. So going back to the presentation, that very much is the do part. And so we have our source of truth. We're documenting desired updates for the next version and continuous improvement efforts. We're making those changes and we're using the course build template before each new cohort begins. And so we started with this checklist. We've got them all checked. It's all incorporated and integrated naturally into the loop design. And so I've got a couple slides on here of what, where do you find loop? And I'm sorry, Nicole, I just saw your message. Doug is absolutely the best. I am in complete agreement with you. So I'm sorry I missed that very, very important comment. Absolutely in agreement. So again, if you're a Microsoft school, it's part of the Microsoft app or the waffle is what we call it. Okay. And so you'll just go to your apps waffle. Loop is probably not going to be your top one. So you may have to expand or search for more and you're going to find Loop. This is just a GIF of all, not even all of the different workspaces, but it will populate. And so all you would do, as it's showing you there, is create a new workspace. You give it a title and you create it. Once you create it, you're going to start building it out. And so you will build it out by creating new pages. And perhaps you can even create a template like we did and use that as your source to feed future iterations of that workspace. Now, I want to tell you one thing that's going to save you so much time. The backslash. Okay. I try to make it as obnoxious as possible because this is the backslash. If you're creating something and you're in the middle of a page and you hit backslash. In fact, I will just show you here. I'll make a new page real quick. If I'm here and I do the backslash, this is where I get all my options. All my options. So I can record video. This is just where all the options are. Going back to the Kanban board, if you like that, but you're like, oh, I'm not sure this is the exact style, you can make it a table. You can also create a calendar. all from that Kanban board. It's just different views. So again, the backslash is where you get your different options. And this is where you just start. I'm not sure why it's not. There we go. You get all of your different options here. And so that is the power of the backslash, not backsplash. That's in your kitchen. Backslash. So, and then you can share your loop with others. And as co-collaborators, as your faculty course developers, and you can make the magic happen, hopefully. And hopefully it will serve you well. So I've got 3:47, and so, or I'm sorry, 2:47, your time. But this QR code in the upper right is a copy of the presentation. And I'd love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn and be glad to answer any questions that you may have. I'm glad to hear that, Nicole. Thank you. It has served us well. It really has. So glad to share it with you. And I hope that it serves you well also. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I, other than vaguely knew of Microsoft Loop, I really hadn't explored it. So, at least for me, thank you.
Absolutely. Very glad to share. Loop is part of Microsoft Teams as well. It is just an easy avenue for collaboration. So give it a try. You can make a loop in a calendar entry so everyone can add to the agenda. I mean, there are so many different uses of Loop. It's really incredible. Oh, Allison, wonderful. Well, reach out, please, if you have any questions. You're not able to open the QR code. Oh, I tried it yesterday to make sure that it worked okay for me. I apologize, Nicole, and I will let's see, someone was able to open it. I just got a notification that someone was able to open it. Nicole, definitely let me know. I mean, feel free to email me if there is, and I'll go ahead and go back to my first slide here.
Like, well, the code for the slides opened.
Go back to the first slide just to give you my email address. Should you, if you need to email me, and I'll be glad to send you a copy of that presentation. I apologize. It looks like others are able to open it okay.
Now, the other one you had says was deactivated.
The LinkedIn one or the second one? The presentation one? Well, absolutely feel free to reach out, folks. I'm sorry if those are not working. I did test both of them and they seemed to work fine yesterday. So my apologies.
That's
The
your old story.
technology
Worked fine yesterday.
That's right.
Sorry.
Okay, Nicole, look forward to connecting. Again, my apologies.
Okay, well,
Any other
Amy, thank you very much for
You
taking
bet.
time to do this for us. And May
Absolutely.
gave us something new to experiment with.